There was a time when cars didn't just take you places, they put on a show, chrome everywhere, switches, buttons, spinning seats, even voices talking from the dashboard. Some of these features felt futuristic, others just plain weird, but for a little while, they all seemed like a good idea. So buckle up. We're taking a ride through 13 old car features that once wowed America and quietly disappeared.
A door is ajar.
Number 1, voice alert systems. In the 1980s, Chrysler thought your car should talk to you. Literally, their electronic voice alert system greeted drivers with robotic messages like,
Please close your driver door.
or,
Your engine oil pressure is critical.
it sounded less like a luxury car and more like a speak and spell with attitude. At first, it felt high-tech, especially on K cars like the LeBaron and New Yorker. But the charm wore off fast. The voice repeated warnings endlessly, lowered your radio when speaking, and couldn't be silenced without pulling a fuse, which sometimes disabled the fuel gauge. Drivers got annoyed, kids got confused, and mechanics, they just rolled their eyes. Chrysler eventually added an off switch in the glove box, but by then, most people had had enough. It promised a space-age convenience, but ended up as a punchline of 80s over-engineering. Still, it walked so Alexa could run. Number 2, swivel bucket seats. Ever wish your car seat could spin like a game show chair? In the late 1950s, some American cars let you do just that. Swivel bucket seats were designed to rotate outward, making it easier to slide in and out, without the awkward shuffle behind a steering wheel. General Motors leaned into the idea during the 60s and 70s, offering the feature on models like the Chevy Monte Carlo and Oldsmobile Cutlass. For a moment, it felt futuristic, a little theatrical, even glamorous. But the novelty wore off. The swivel mechanisms were fussy, often broke, and didn't hold up well over time. Passengers said the seats felt unstable, like trying to balance on an office chair during a turn. By the late 70s, practicality won out. The seats stopped spinning, and drivers went back to climbing in the old-fashioned way. It was a stylish solution to a problem no one really had. Number 3, highway hi-fi. In 1956, Chrysler decided your morning drive needed more than just radio. It needed vinyl. So they introduced the highway hi-fi, a record player built right into the dashboard. That's right, a turntable in a moving car. But it didn't play regular records. These were special 7-inch discs that spun at 16 2/3 RPM, an odd speed chosen to squeeze in up to an hour of music per side. Chrysler even partnered with Columbia Records to offer exclusive albums, mostly show tunes and orchestral pieces. It sounded good, until you hit a pothole. The needle skipped, the audio crackled, and the whole thing turned into a balancing act on wheels. It was expensive, limited in music selection, and hated bumpy roads. The highway hi-fi didn't last long, but for a brief moment, you could cruise down the interstate while a Broadway soundtrack wobbled beneath the dash. It was a beautiful disaster. Number 4, automatic seatbelts. Back in the late 70s and early 80s, automakers tried to fix a problem. People weren't buckling up. Their solution? Belts that moved on their own. Automatic seatbelts slid along a track and wrapped across your chest the moment you shut the door, like a slow-motion karate chop. It looked futuristic, but felt awkward. Many people still ignored the lap belt, which meant less protection overall. Some systems even attached to the door itself, so you had to dodge the belt just to get in. And if the mechanism jammed, good luck. They were clunky, inconvenient, and often annoying. But they did serve a purpose, for a while. By the mid-1990s, airbags had taken over as the preferred safety feature. Automatic seatbelts faded fast, remembered today mostly for startling first-time passengers, and strangling a few jackets along the way. Number 5, opera windows. They didn't open. They didn't help you see. But in the 1970s, opera windows were the height of luxury, at least according to car designers. These small oval or square windows were tucked behind the rear doors, usually framed in chrome, and set into vinyl roofs. You'd see them on Lincoln Continentals, Cadillac Seville's, and Chrysler New Yorkers, silently declaring premium without adding a single ounce of function. Manufacturers claim they echoed the feel of private opera boxes. In reality, they were just decorative fluff, pretty to look at, but useless day to day. Worse, they often leaked, rattled, or added noise on the highway. By the late 80s, buyers moved on, preferring cleaner lines over faux elegance. Today, opera windows are a quirky memory, proof that sometimes luxury is just a fancy hole in the side of your car. Number 6. Push-button transmissions. In the 1950s, shifting gears got a space-age makeover. Chrysler introduced push-button transmissions, replacing the gear lever with a row of buttons on the dashboard. It looks sleek and modern, like piloting a rocket ship. The Power Flight system lets you drive with just a tap. Chrysler even marketed it as more appealing to women, because apparently buttons were less intimidating than sticks. At first, people were impressed, but problems showed up fast. The buttons could jam, were awkwardly placed, and made parking feel like cracking a safe. Repairs were tricky, and mechanics didn't love working on them. By the mid-60s, the novelty had worn off. Simpler, more reliable shift levers returned and stayed. Still, for a brief time, pushing a button felt like the future. A shiny, chrome-trimmed future that didn't quite stick around. Number 7. Fender Skirts. In the mid-20th century, nothing said streamlined quite like Fender Skirts. These curved metal panels cover the upper half of a car's rear wheels, giving the body a long, low, elegant look, like it was gliding instead of driving. Cadillacs, Buicks, and Chevys wore them proudly, especially in the 40s through 60s. The goal? Style. Pure and simple. But underneath that smooth line was a headache waiting to happen. Need to change a tire? You'd have to remove the skirt first, usually with tools. They also trapped dirt and moisture, leading to rust. And while they looked aerodynamic, they offered no real performance gain. As car design moved towards sportier and more practical shapes in the 70s, Fender Skirts quietly disappeared. Today, they're remembered more for their flair than function. A stylish touch from an era that loved a little drama. Number 8. Vibrasonic sound system. In the late 1950s, General Motors had a bold idea. What if your car's stereo echoed like a cathedral? Enter the Vibrasonic sound system, a reverb unit that added artificial echo to your music, aiming for concert hall vibes on the open road. At first, it felt impressive. Songs sounded fuller, richer, until you tried having a conversation. Voices got muddy, radio talk shows turned to mush, and everything started to sound like it was coming from the bottom of a well. Worse, the system shook panels, was hard to install, and didn't age well. It was more gimmick than upgrade. By the mid-60s, GM quietly dropped the feature. Still, it proved one thing. Just because something sounds fancy doesn't mean it is. Number 9. Curb feelers. Back in the 50s and 60s, drivers had a low-tech way to protect their white walls: curb feelers. These springy metal antennas stuck out just above the wheels and made a high-pitched scrape the moment you got too close to the curb. They were simple, cheap, and surprisingly effective. On big cars with wide fenders and no backup cameras, curb feelers were like parking sensors with personality. But they bent easily, rusted quickly, and eventually became more of an eyesore than a help. Some folks thought they made their car look like it had whiskers. As car design evolved and tech took over, curb feelers clattered into history. Today, they're a forgotten detail from a time when sound, not sensors, warned you that you were parking like your dad. Number 10. Hidden fuel fillers. In the 1950s and 60s, car designers didn't just hide fuel caps. They turned them into party tricks. Some were tucked behind taillights. Others flipped down with the license plate. It looked sleek, clever, even a little sneaky. The 1964 Thunderbird nailed the effect. Drivers loved watching puzzled gas station attendants search for the filler. It added flair to something as mundane as pumping gas. But function didn't keep up with form. Hidden fillers were awkward to access, often messy, and sometimes damaged paint or trim during refueling. Eventually, safety regulations ended the fun. Rear center fuel caps were banned, and the hide-and-seek era came to a close. Still, those secret gas doors live on in memory as one more moment when even filling up was part of the show. Number 11. CD changers. Before playlists lived in your pocket, they spun in your trunk. CD changers were the ultimate road trip flex. Load 6 or even 10 discs into a magazine-style tray, then switch albums with the push of a button. No more fumbling with jewel cases at red lights. For a while, it felt like magic. But they weren't perfect. Carousels jammed, tracks skipped, and changing a disc sometimes meant pulling over. And if you forgot what was in slot 5, good luck. As MP3s and aux cords took over, CD changers faded fast. Still, for a generation of drivers, nothing beat the sound of that soft clunk as your car picked the next soundtrack to your life. Number 12. Car phones. In the 1980s, nothing said success like a phone in your car. Big, wired, and bolted under the seat, these early mobile phones made every commute feel like a business deal in motion. They weren't exactly user-friendly. Signals were weak, calls were full of static, and the units could heat up like a toaster. Still, for a brief moment, they were the ultimate status symbol. The tech actually dated back to the 1940s, but it wasn't until the 80s that they hit the mainstream, briefly. Then came smaller, better cell phones. Suddenly, nobody wanted a phone you had to start the car to use. Today, car phones are relics, more impressive in memory than they ever were in practice. Number 13. Bench seats front. Once a staple of American cars, front bench seats were all about space and togetherness. 3 people could ride up front, side by side, with nothing but vinyl between them. For families, it meant fitting everyone in one row. For young couples, it meant sliding a little closer on date night. No consoles, no armrests, just one big cushion and a lot of legroom. But tastes changed. Bucket seats felt sportier, safer, and worked better with modern seatbelts and gear shifters. By the 2010s, the bench seat had quietly disappeared from sedans, surviving a bit longer in pickups. Today, they're remembered less for comfort and more for connection. A reminder of when driving was a shared experience, not just a solo ride with cup holders. From talking dashboards to spinning seats, these features may be gone, but they left behind stories, laughs, and a little chrome-covered charm. Some were ahead of their time. Others never had a chance. Which one do you remember? Or better yet, which one did you actually use? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the ride, hit subscribe for more memories from the road.